Welcome back. Today I will touch upon API throttling in Power Platform. So let's get started. So let's try to understand throttling. So throttling in API happens when your flows are making requests at a rate that exceeds the limit set by the service you are interacting with. This results in the service slowing down or even stopping the flow of data. Okay, so this is called throttling. So when you are sending more request in a shorter span of time, the service provider slows down your request. So that is called throttling. So throttling is basically to uh, limit the request so that the server processing the request are not overburdened. Okay. So now coming to request in Microsoft Power Platform. So at a high level, an API request is request to connectors, process advisor analysis, HTTP actions, and built-in actions like initializing variables or using compose. So everything is an API request, right? All these, any request is an API request. So both succeed and failed actions will count towards API request limits. Additionally, retries and other requests from pagination count as action executions too. So whenever you are making a call to Microsoft Power Platform server, cloud server, okay, it is a API call and it consists it comprises of a request to the Microsoft Power Platform cloud. Okay, but it's not applicable to the desktop flow. Okay, when you are using a local desktop flow, local variables or running the desktop flow, that will not count for as an API request. But if you're using some connectors, cloud connectors in desktop flow, like SharePoint or DataVert, then it will be counting as an API request. But if you're having some actions in desktop flow like click UI element, browser automation, create data table, that will not count as API request in desktop flow. But the same thing, if you're doing in cloud flow, any kind of actions, okay, will be counted as a API request. So when you get throttle, means even the server is too much busy to work on your request, so it will respond with status code 429. Okay, that is too many requests in a shorter span of time, or server busy. Okay, and some platform API limits depend upon your license plan also in Power Platform or Microsoft 365. Okay, so let's move on to next. So these are some guidelines to estimate the request usage of a flow. One or more actions run as part of a flow run. A simple flow with one trigger and one action results in two actions each time the flow runs, consuming two requests. Okay. Every trigger action in the flow generates Power Platform request. Both succeeded and failed action count towards these limits. Skipped actions aren't counted towards these limits. Each action generates one request. If the action is in applied to each loop, it generates as many requests as there are items the loop processes. So this is also very important point. An action can have multiple expression, but it counts as one API request only. Okay. And retries and extra requests from pagination count as action execution too. Okay. Now moving on to what are action request limits in Power Automate. So action request limits are the number of action request a specific account can make in a 24-hour window. The number of action requests you can make will depend on the license that you have been allocated. Okay. As an example, if you have a Microsoft 365 seeded license, you are able to make 2000 action requests in a 24-hour window. Okay. Some important points you should know that action request limit is against the primary flow owner, okay, who has actually created the flow. And loops can incur lots of action requests. So be mindful of the loops also. So daily limit is counted from all flows run by a single account. So if you have 10 flows created by single account, it will, so the daily limit will count from a total of all the flows run. Okay. Now how to handle throttling? You can use delays. Okay. You can optimize your flows, reducing the number of actions in your flows. Okay. Handling errors. Okay. In case you encounter throttling, you feel that there is a throttling issue, you can put some retry after the delay. Okay. So how to handle throttling? You can have three trigger based settings. Okay. So as you can see here, you have the concurrency control. Uh, okay. So here in the screenshot below, we have set the degree to 1, which means at any given time there will be only instance of the flow running and all consecutive actions will be put on the wait list. This reduces the number of API calls. So basically our target is to reduce the number of calls in in a particular span of time. Like in 1 minute, it should not exceed like 300 calls in a minute. Just an example. Okay. So, and what are actions based settings? So once the trigger settings are done, there must be cases where a single flow instance can also cause throttling issues. In such cases, actions settings can be changed and a custom retry policy can be set. That will wait for the set time before making the API call request. Okay. So here, as you can see, there is a retry policy where you can set the interval after which it will retry. Okay. So like if it's every 60 seconds the API is throttling, so you can put some retry for wait for 60 seconds as it is mentioned here, so that after 60 seconds only it will do the next request. Okay. So this way you can avoid throttling. Okay. So this has to be incorporated in the design of the flow. Well, while designing, the solution architect should keep this in mind. Okay. So I think that's all for today. Also, I want to want you to note that for desktop flow, the normal actions like set variable, those will not be counted in API calls. Okay, only the actions which are calling to the cloud services like Dataverse, SharePoint. Okay, those will be counted in the API request. Okay, so while designing the flow, the solution architect or the architect has to keep this in mind. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for listening to my video. So if you have any feedback, please do let me know. Thank you so much. Bye bye.